In this video, we're going to do a very quick overview of what the home buying process entails and really starting at the point of having found your home and submitting an offer. So really the first step is, of course, to find your home. Once you find your home, we have the process of submitting an offer, having it accepted, and then really activating the contract. So for the submitting the offer, it's fairly straightforward. As your agent, somebody from our team will be able to take a look at the property, look at comparable properties in that area, and decide on or help inform what the offer price should be, both on the comps that exist as well as from a conversation with the listing agent to understand what the market is doing, how much activity they've gotten, and what, if any, other offers are looking like so that we can compete against the offers. The offer packet itself is fairly simple. So really the main documents that are required in order to submit a complete offer packet, it includes the purchase offer and any supplemental documents, and that's on your realtor, our team, to be able to pull that together for you. Along with that, we'll make sure to submit a pre-approval letter from your lender showing that we have access to the funds or the financing to complete the purchase. We'll need any proof of funds, which can be anything from bank statements to retirement account statements, something that shows that you have access to the funds necessary for completing the purchase. And then in some cases, folks like to submit a personal letter. It's not a requirement. It doesn't always help, but sometimes it does make a difference. And so, that's kind of in a nutshell what's included within the submittal. When it comes to the acceptance, when we submit an offer, there's typically about a 3-day window during which a seller has time to make a decision. Typically, it's about a 24-hour, 36-hour turnaround between when we first officially submit. Of course, that's pending if there is a clear deadline by when offers need to be submitted by. If there is no clear deadline and they're reviewing as they receive them, that 3-day window kind of kicks in. What happens during the acceptance is the ability for the seller to decide on take one of 3 actions. They can decide to just straight out decline our offer and not even respond to it necessarily. The next step they could take is, of course, accepting it as it is. The third option that they have is a counter, in which case they may have received several offers that they are considering, and they basically take the information from the offers and decide on terms that are most comfortable for them, and then turn around and counter however many offers they'd like to counter. They don't have to counter everybody, but if they have a few that they're really considering, they can counter with terms that would be more acceptable to them. And then it's up to the buyer to decide if those terms are likewise acceptable to them. And they have the same options, just to straight out decline the counter, accept the counter, or do another counter from the buyer's side based on the counter received from the seller. And so that's part of the process. The acceptance isn't actually in place until somebody signs one of the either the original contract by the seller or one of the counters. So whether it's the seller sending the buyer the counter, that's not an execute or accept the contract unless the buyer signs the seller's counter. If the buyer decides to send back a counter, then it's not an accepted contract until the seller signs and accepts the counter. And so once we do have a contract in place, however, the next big thing is to open up escrow, and that's typically done through the listing agent with a title company. The title company will reach out directly to the buyers and coordinate the transfer or the wiring of the earnest money deposit, which you'll see in another video is 1% of the offer price. And the submission of these funds truly does make the contract official at that point. And so we're able to then move forward with the contract. The next step in the process, once we do that, is scheduling the inspections. And so though there's a list of about 30 to 40 different inspections that you can technically do on a home, there's really a core set of 5 that we strongly recommend that you consider. Some of these may or may not come into play depending if we already have recent inspections for the seller, or if we have information about a roof and proof that it has recently been done and we're comfortable with that proof to not have to spend on it. And so here are the 5 inspections that we recommend are the home, the pest, the roof, the HVAC, and the sewer line. And these are almost at a minimum. You can see that there's little descriptors here. The home inspection is really kind of the general inspection of the entire house. They get on the roof, they inspect all the visible electrical and plumbing in the house. They get underneath the home to look if there is a crawl space or a basement. And so their job is to kind of assess the 1 in 1 millionth incident of something going wrong in the house. And the reports tend to reflect that. And we'll go over reports in a future video. For the pests, they're really looking at any type of existing wood damage, right, or water damage. And so the pest is in the name, the primary pests they're looking for are any kind of wood damaging organisms, which tend to be termites, wood-boring beetles, or fungus. And so a lot of times when you are looking at homes and you see kind of wood that looks a little soft and you poke at it, it isn't always termites. It can be. It's typically just water intrusion that has created conditions for fungus to grow and thereby eat at the wood, creating that softness that is both visible and physical to touch. And so they'll identify any areas that have that will fall under what's called Section 1, existing wood or water damage. Anything that could potentially lead to water or wood damage would be a Section 2 item. And so those would be things like a hose bib that is dripping close to siding that could be damaged over time. And so we'll get a report and we'll also get a scope of work. The home inspector does not provide a scope of work. They are completely unbiased with regard to their findings. It is just a straight assessment. Everybody else is essentially somebody that is doing an inspection, but their inspection comes alongside a scope of work in case with a list of recommended repairs in case that we will use to negotiate if there's a need to. So from there, the roof assesses really just the external, the outer part of the roof. There's an extra fee and they can go into the attic. The home inspector does go into an attic. And so we kind of just typically use roof assessment to really kind of assess the condition of the roof on the home and age, and if there's needed repairs for them to give us a sense of what those repairs would cost. HVAC inspectors get into both the heating and cooling units to look at what the conditions are. Things that we typically come across are for units that folks haven't kept up with changing the filters in the intake, that they tend to have the machines run a little bit hotter. And so things that we're looking for are cracks in the heat exchangers or things like that. But those are all being assessed by the HVAC inspector. And at the end of it, they'll also have if there's needs for repairs, they'll have a list of repairs, the scope of work associated with it. And finally, the sewer line, what they do is they use a access point typically located on the property itself. It's called a clean out, and they're able to run a camera through the clean out, and the goal is to assess the condition of the pipe. Ideally, it's a nice clean flow. There are at points areas where the pipe is a little disjointed. As long as it's flowing with the water and it's minimal, with the flow of water and it's minimal disjointing, we can assess the condition of it at that point. And really what we're looking at is to make sure there's no obstruction, no root intrusion or collapses in the line that could cause backups longer term. And similarly to the HVAC roof and pest, we'll get a list of recommended repairs as well as the scope of work that comes with it. From there, once we get through the inspections and we either decide that we're good to go with what we observed or saw within the inspections, or negotiated any points that really kind of focus on the structural or safety related to the house, then the final steps are really kind of working with the lender and the title company to secure. First big one is the appraisal. The appraisal sets a ceiling for what the lender is able to offer you for a loan. And so that is kind of a key piece where at minimum what we're hoping is for the appraisal to come in at value. In the market that we're in right now, appraisers are finally catching up. A couple of months ago, it was a bit of a challenge because we saw a big spike in prices. And so our appraisals were regularly coming in under value, under the offer price. In that instance, unless we have released our appraisal contingency or have included an appraisal guarantee, which we'll go over in a separate video, then we have to, it basically reopens up the negotiations on price and provides an opportunity for either buyer or seller to cancel and back out at that point. The loan really is more so just the lender securing documentation and any other information that they need from you as a buyer to be able to ensure that the loan can be underwritten. Typically, most loans, unless they're funded by the lender themselves, the way that lending works is that there's a lender that writes, offers you a loan, they underwrite it, and by underwriting, really what they're trying to make sure is that everything looks like a nice, secure lending package that they're able to then sell to the secondary market so they can re-liquefy in order to be able to continue to make loans. And so they're just making sure that any and all risk that they can mitigate has been mitigated through the underwriting process. You're a nice, solid buyer, and folks can feel confident about your loan. And then finally, we're working with title. Once we get through the appraisal and we release that because we can have value or negotiate it, adjust the price, and we get approval from the underwriter that your loan is fully approved, then we step into the process of having the lender draw up the documents that will need to get signed by you and sending those over to title. Once title gets those documents, they can schedule a signing, but they will not officially schedule a signing until they have those documents in hand. Once we do have those documents in hand, though, depending on what time of day they come in, it could be that we could schedule a same day signing. Typically, though, it's a next day signing. And in the age of COVID, the title companies are not doing any in-house, in-office signings at the moment. Most of them are scheduling mobile notaries. So you just need to let us know where's the most convenient and comfortable place for you to sign. It could be at your current residence. It could be at a public restaurant or cafe, whatever works for you. Mobile notary would be able to accommodate that. So once all documents have been sent out and you have signed them, then really we're kind of almost at the finish line, but not quite there yet. Once the documents are signed, they're returned to the title company and they make sure that they have all the documents, all the signatures and initials in the right places, and they share a copy of that with your lender. Once the lender receives those documents, then they release their funds to the title company. You'll wire your funds to the title company for any remaining balance, including down payment or any additional costs associated with the completion of the purchase. Once title confirms that funds from the lender have been received, all of your funds have been received, at that point, they release the file to record with the county. We're not officially able to get you keys until it has officially recorded with the county. Depending on what time lenders get all the financing or all the funds in place and they release the file to record, if they release it to record prior to 11 o'clock a.m., typically that will get recorded the same day. If any delays happen and they're not able to release it to record until the afternoon, more than likely it'll be recorded the next day. And so those are the kind of key things to keep in mind. One thing to help ensure the avoidance of any unnecessary delays is to confirm what the process is to wire funds from your bank. In some cases, it's as simple as going online and scheduling a wiring of the funds that can happen next morning. Other times it may take a few days. Other times they will not do it. So making sure that you understand and are familiar with the wiring processes related to your financial institution are going to be key to ensure that there's no delay. That in a nutshell is the process of buying a home. Of course, there's a lot of nuance that we're happy to walk you through for your specific situation, but those are the kind of the key pieces of the puzzle that regardless we're going to go through. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at info@thepyreteam.com. Stay tuned for future videos and look forward to talking to you.